Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Conversations with Coaches podcast. I'm your usual host, Kevin, and I've already been having an absolutely delightful conversation with Stephanie Bergot. T is silent, correct? Yes.
Yes.
Practice pronunciation is a very important part of being a podcast host, and I've gotten to mangle and learn so many great names over the past couple of years. It's quite nice, actually. I have a very boring name, Kevin Stafford, easy to pronounce for the most part. Stephanie. Stephanie holds a degree in applied neuroscience coaching and a master's degree in cultural business management. She's been a potential catalyst for more than a decade, and she's supported many individuals and businesses in achieving their goals. Her primary goal is simple, that every person can bring the best of herself to the role that suits her. That's a very strong, a simple and strong mission statement that I'm excited to talk with you about today. So, Stephanie, thanks for being on the podcast. I'm excited to chat.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm super happy to be here.
Excellent. Well, let's start at the start. Let's begin at the beginning. Your superhero origin story as a coach. How did you realize that maybe you already were a coach? How did you decide to become a coach? Who told you that you had these certain attributes or abilities that, hey, you seem like maybe you should try coaching? How did you figure that out or get that beginning? And then how did you go from there to the business that you have today?
Well, when I was 18 years old, I started a business in event planning, and it's project managing. And then I changed with time. I became a project manager. I had a business where I helped entrepreneurs, hiring new people, building new product, opening new division and stuff. And every time, it was not the project part that was more of a challenge. It was much more when we get to the end, after investing, after time, after everything, that the entrepreneur or the owner of the project were like doubting themselves, doubting the way it was done, a bit scared, because sometimes it's like it's like getting something new out is sometimes challenging, and you feel fear and everything. So I've been helping my clients at that time with what I was and what I knew at that time, and I was naturally built for coaching. And 6 or 7 years ago, I decided I wanted to go and search for tools, special tools, and to get them out of their limiting beliefs, for example, to help them lower the stress and anxiety and all of those. So I decided to do 2-year classes in neuroscience applied to coaching. I like to understand what's going on, and neuroscience help you understand the functioning of the brain and why you act like this or act like that and what's going on with this or that. So I was super happy I chose that. And while I was doing my diploma, they strongly recommend to start coaching, but I was already accompanying many people. So I started doing coaching and techniques because it was needed to try them on previous client. And I did a Facebook post just wondering like if anyone would be interested in me following them for a couple of hours just so I could practice and everything. And I had more than 40 people that answered that small Facebook post. And wow. I was like, okay. So they asked us for 1 or 2, and I was like, okay, now I have to choose out of 40. Some of them I couldn't because it was people too close to me, and like to really practice, it's not recommend. So I've chosen 10 of them. Finally, I'm a pretty intense person. I like to try stuff, and I wanted to be the best at that. And so I chose 10 different person, and with each challenge, different challenges. And like that, at the same time, I realized what I really loved to do and what I love a bit less. Like, for example, all that's weight loss related, I leave that to personal trainer. I prefer to work on mindsets, business strategy, and stuff like that. And that's how I became a coach. And since the last 6 years now, I'm not doing project management anymore or on special basics.
Yes.
basis. And now I do only coaching.
I love a lot about that story. I love especially like when you reach out, it's one of those things that life tends to provide you in one way or another when you find yourself on the right path. And I'm kind of putting air quotes there because that is a changing and growing and evolving thing as you move through life. But there tends to be that moment of abundant enthusiasm. And when you put out a request for one or two and you get 40 back, that's one of those like, okay, I kind of already knew I was going the right direction and I'm really enjoying where I'm going. And that's one of those little like, I always interpret that as a little nudge from life, whatever it is, that yeah, you're going the right direction. And you know what? Your problem's not going to be that you have too few. Your problem's going to be that you have too many, and you're going to get good at being
Yes,
discerning.
clearly. And it was very, very touching to see that friends I have for decades were willing to learn about themselves with me. People I knew from a professional standpoint wanted to evolve also on mindset stuff with me. So I was very, very touched by the answer. And clearly it created an evidence for me that it was the right path to go to.
Mm-hmm. All these people that knew you in so many different capacities or barely knew you at all recognized that core element of you that you recognized that made you decide to become a coach. It's like that core ability to get into a situation, whatever it happens to be. And I love that you kind of came from project management, because what's a human being if not a project to be managed at times? I say that very tongue-in-cheek jokingly, but some of the same principles do apply to the way you move through life, and crises arise and fall, and plans need to be made, and systems and strategies in place. And also you need to be there in the moment to realize when things are maybe starting to slip. And you have that like expertise where you could see a place that needs your attention, that needs some help, that needs some guidance, and move into it before it even becomes a problem. That dynamic aspect of coaching that I love so much. I get very enthusiastic about it when I talk about it, but I always see the connections there. But I just love that so many different people from so many walks of life saw the same thing in you that you saw in yourself. And that's what makes you a great coach. And I love when, and this is universal to every coach, and I'm talking a little bit too much, but I love acknowledging this. Every coach I've spoken to answered the call. They heard it and they answered it. And that's something that takes more courage than I think sometimes we appreciate, even in ourselves, to just heed that call, that realization that this might be something I should be doing, or I'm feeling a stirring in my life, a passion or an interest or an excitement or just even a curiosity, and you answer the call. And I think that's what makes coaches so valuable to the people that they coach, is that the people that are asking for coaching, they're essentially right at the beginning of that journey. They're like reaching for the phone, so to speak. They're about to answer that call. Maybe they don't know how, or they're scared, or whatever happens to be blocking them or stymieing them. And they answer that call. And a coach, having answered the call themselves, I feel like is perfectly positioned to be the guide in those moments in life, and in a career, in a relationship, and anywhere. No, not really a question there. I'm just acknowledging that I'm so glad you answered the call.
No, exactly. And we were talking before, Carl, about the challenge of hosting those type of conversation with coaches, because they are really mostly close to their emotion. They've done the work about knowing themselves and everything. So I think that answering that call comes also from a real willingness of doing the right thing and being at the right place. And like for me, coaching was the I do the puzzle analogy. Like I did many things in my life. I've been an event planner, I've been a project manager, I've worked with dentists as well as artists, as well as athletes, as well as, so all those knowledge were like in a piece of puzzle, and it was like if there was only one piece missing. And when I did the coaching stuff, like, I mean, the learnings about it, it was for me often, I already knew that it was natural in myself. So it was like completing the puzzle with the coaching piece was like making it complete. And now it only grow bigger because I'm learning new stuff, achieving new stuff, learning new skills. And I think that the curiosity part most coaches have, the knowledge of themselves and of emotions and communication, and the willingness to help people are like trio that really brings them to the right place.
I couldn't agree more. It's the beating heart of every coach that I've met and gotten a chance to know. That's that. And I love the way that you have your hand gestures there. This audio only podcast, but I do the same thing where my hands will rise up into the camera, and you made the perfect little hand gesture of almost like that bound together. The way it's like I've in my head, in my heart, I've often found myself going to the analogy of a braid or a rope, where it's like a rope is just these slender threads that you found you've woven together in such a way so as to make this strong, useful length of material, of something that can tie you to things. Whereas like I often think about what a coach does is that braiding together of things in such a way that makes the whole so much stronger. And I said to it seems to me the beating heart of coaching.
Yes, exactly. And all the curiosity. I've always been interested in learning from people, learning new stuff, learning from new industry technology. And coaching for me was exactly what I needed, because like that, I can, for example, help you with something that is not in your industry, but I've seen it somewhere else, and like cross the information and the knowledge, and then feeling useful and bringing other ways of doing it I've seen before. And so, yes, all of those like became a full piece instead of being all pieces around. So it's like a puzzle. It makes the full image at the end.
I love in my head, I have actually in my head, in my heart, in my games closet, I have a 2,000 piece jigsaw puzzle. I've loved puzzles since my mom kind of got me into them when I was very, very young, and I've always loved them. And I've just been kind of waiting for the right weekend to tackle it. I love the way it feels when pieces fit together to bring it back to what we're talking about in coaching. And I'm realizing that I'm doing the thing I told you that I would do, and I'm losing myself in the conversation delightfully. So I'm going to bring us up to the present and ask you about basically who do you coach and how do you coach them these days? What does your business look like? How do you engage with your clients? Is it primarily one-to-one coaching, or maybe small group coaching, or like executive team based? Do you do keynote speeches or any kind of coursework? All of the above, and then some. Like, so basically, who do you coach these days, and how do you go about coaching them?
I do many of the one you names. First, I do keynote speaking because I feel like that it's possible to transfer knowledge and emotion easily to many people. I mostly do one-on-one because like that we're able to work directly on the thing you want to improve or change or evolve. Or most of my clients are entrepreneurs, high executive, or athletes, people that are really into getting the best out of them. And sometimes also I have part of my clients that are people that want to change drastically their life. For example, been employed in a big company for 10, 15, 20 years. They feel empty even though they have like the nice family, the nice job, the nice salary, nice everything, but they feel a bit empty and they want to change drastically some stuff. And I love that because we're building pieces by pieces, a bit of the same thing as the puzzle. Like, okay, what's going to be the next step? What do you need to prepare before doing the jump? Where do you want to jump? Because sometimes they've been lost for so many years that they don't even know where they wanted to go after leaving that job or after retiring. And I do also retiring athletes. You know, when you spend most of your life training, for example, for the Olympics, and then it's done and you choose to retreat, which is sometimes you do one, if you're lucky, two, and some extraordinary athletes did 4 or 5, but it's very rare. But what's next after that? You've put your entire energy and life around something, a project, and sometimes it's the sports, and then you're not quite sure what's going to be the next step. So I love those type of clients. I like working with them and opening doors to new stuff they love. So yes, mostly I do group coaching also as well, and some training programs and stuff around that too. But mostly mindset and know-how.
Yeah, special tips and tricks, techniques, things that people, like you were sort of acknowledging earlier, things that you didn't realize you already knew, That's a lot of times what these tools will reveal, like coaching tools will reveal, is like you kind of knew something, or it was somewhere on the back burner, or you were aware of it in some way, but then through coaching and through the tools and through the techniques you discover that, or you're coached to learn how to use, you see something about yourself or about your life or your job or your family or whatever slightly differently enough to where all of a sudden it comes into relief, like the way something will look different when the light's going down in the sky, like at sunset, and you see all the shadows and all the things you didn't see before, and you're like, oh, I knew this all along, and yet somehow I didn't know it. And that, I love those moments, kind of like we were talking about with the puzzle pieces clicking together. Those moments of realization it's what coaches live for, quite frankly.
Yes, what I say often is there's no change without consciousness, and consciousness and knowledge is two different things. If knowledge was the only thing, no one's gonna would be smoking still cigarette. I mean, everyone knows that it's wrong for your health and everything, but why is there still some people? It's because it's not conscious yet. But if one day the doctor told them, your health, or you have a cancer, or someone you love has a cancer, now we pass from knowledge to consciousness, and then you want to make a change. So sometimes I have clients that are very, very successful, like, I mean, money-wise, business-wise, family-wise. And although all of this is good, they feel they need to change something. They need, for example, to come back to a regular schedule. For example, they've been working hours and hours because they thought that to be an entrepreneur and a good leader, you need to be the first one there in the morning and the last one to leave. And now after 15 years of that, you're like tired, or you feel like you're missing your family, or you feel that something else is more important than it was at the beginning. And sometimes changing stuff in which you crystallized is not that easy. So they put consciousness, and then they call me and they're like, okay, I know I want to change my schedule, but I don't want my revenue to decrease. I don't want my employees to be sad, mad, feel abandoned or whatever. So those are all things we all know. Coaches are not there to teach you some stuff. They're there to make you realize some stuff. And sometimes it's just a 1+1 thing, and you're like, oh, that makes so much sense.
I love that. I was thinking about that in the context of the athletes too, especially high-performing athletes. A longtime sports fan myself, and I've always been very fascinated and had a lot of empathy for when an athlete, especially one who's had great success, because then their career has been long, and they've essentially been doing this one thing at the highest possible level for 20, 30, sometimes 40 years, the lion's share of their entire life, even going back to before they were an adult in so many cases. And then that's just done because your ability to physically achieve things wanes, even as your mental and emotional abilities kind of continue to grow as you go through life. And that unbundling moment, it's so fascinating, because you watch, I can only imagine what that would be like. And I'm always so grateful when athletes are willing to share that transition, because I can only imagine the difficulty of unbundling yourself from the identity of who you were when you were achieving these things, yourself as the athlete, yourself as the smoker, yourself as the 80-hour week, or 80 to 100-hour week entrepreneur who, built everything from scratch and is first one in and last one to leave. It's like, how do you shift your identity without compromising what you've built and who you are and who you still want to become? And I find it, obviously, I'm reaching for words. I find it endlessly fascinating, and I have a tremendous amount of empathy for that process. And I love that that's an area of focus for you in your coaching service, that you focus on those truly challenging identity transition moments.
Yes, and I love it, clearly. And identity shift, you have many in your career. Like, for example, you started a gym business because you wanted to help people lose weight, for example, and then more people is coming, more people are coming, and one day you're working 70 to 80 hours a week helping people, but still managing your business. And now you need to have confidence in someone else that is going to help you accompany and train those people. And one day you pass from the trainer that opened a gym to the entrepreneurs and the manager that take care of business administration and some stuff. So this is one identity shift. And the athlete you were talking about, if we talk, for example, about an athlete that did for 40 years, Tom Brady is a good example. He's had so much time to prepare his retreat. So maybe he has started already to think about what he's going to do after. And in his case, he doesn't need to worry about money. But if we talk about Olympic athletes, those are rarely well paid. Often they've been struggling to pay their competition, and they found help here and there, and sponsors and everything. But like, they need to prepare, but it's not often the case, because sometimes they want to they wanted to last a bit longer. Sometimes they didn't have the energy and the free thoughts to think about that. And sometimes, unfortunately, their body doesn't follow, so it's not their full choice to stop. It's like it doesn't work anymore. You can't go, or you're not anymore the athlete's chosen to go to the Olympic, and then your career ends. So it's a big shift, and I love working on those, because like that we can rebuild or find exactly what you want. Because if you've been spending 20 years of your time focusing, I've been a gymnast for years and years and years. It was my sports. And I chose gymnastic. I didn't do any other sport at that time, because of the time I was spending in gymnastic is with 20 to 25 hours a week. I didn't go to the class event because I was training at that time. I wasn't going any. So you focus your life for a long time on one special activity or sports or discipline. Sometimes it's music even. And now you have plenty of time to think, and you don't know what you'd love to experiment, and you don't know what you love to try, because you haven't tried, because you've been focused. So you're extraordinary at being good and at focusing, but you're not that good at trying new stuff and experimenting and choosing and having a balanced life, because athletes, entrepreneurs, highly achiever doesn't have very often a balanced life. We're getting better at it, because the world is changing. The mental health part is more talked about, so people are trying to be more conscious of, we need a balance in life. But honestly, most of them are passionate people about what they do. And if we have to remove something they really love for any reason, they need to find some new stuff and to build new passion. And so yes, we could talk about that for hours. I love those.
I could too. I was thinking to myself, I was looking at the clock, and I did the thing that I promised I would try not to do, and almost was certain that I would do. And I've let us go for a little bit longer than we should, but I just might have to have you back for a part 2 or 3, because this really, I mean, it's why we do what we do. That ability to move into those places where people need the most help, and where we can draw from our own experiences and help people to transition and grow and evolve to and through and beyond whatever the next piece of the puzzle looks like. I could have this conversation all day, and I look forward to having this conversation on and off for the rest of my life, quite frankly. So before I let you go, I do need to get you out of here, I'm sure. I do want to ask you, where can people find out more about you? Actually, let me ask it the 2-part. Find out more about you, like a website, or like, go to LinkedIn or whatever, just like read, learn more about who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do. And then also, where do you like to connect with people? Is there a particular social media platform, or like a way that you like to meet potential new clients for the first time? So like, where can people learn more about you and then connect with you and get to know you, because they're going to want to.
Thank you. The best way for now is Facebook or Instagram under Stéphanie Bergot. You're going to find on Instagram and Facebook also Catalyseur de Potentiel, which means potential catalyst. I'm working on my English website, because it's all in French, but if you want to go and see it, it's catalyseurdepotentiel.com. And there's the small translating button at the top. But I'm working on having both languages, because almost half of my clients are English. But I find them through referral. People are sending them to me, and that's why most of the people don't get to my website. But Facebook and Instagram is the best way to connect and to talk with me in French or in English. I would be pleased to welcome all of them and answer the question. And I would be pleased if you want to have me again. I love talking about
It's I absolutely 100% will. I often find myself feeling this way, but I have to tell you, I especially feel this way having talked to you. We're coming up to the very edge of like the booked time in our calendars, and I'm just like I'm trying to squeeze every last minute out of it. So thank you. I'm a little bit overwhelmed with gratitude for this conversation. It was really delightful, and it spoke to me not just in a general like I love coaching and what coaches do, but I love your focus and the way you choose to go about it and engage, and the people that you choose to focus on serving. It's really like it speaks to me. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me. I love talking about that, and I love sharing. And as you said it at the real beginning, what I want is people to be at the right spot, being happy at what they do at the right spot. And that starts by knowing yourself, and then do whatever you need to do to be exactly when you feel like it. Thanks a lot for having me today.
It was my pleasure. I think that was the perfect place to leave it. Audience, get to reach out, find out more about Stephanie. She is a delight. You have learned a little bit. Reach out and learn more. And we here will talk to you again very soon.